Hello and welcome to the Young Film Academy podcast, the essential podcast for teenagers looking to find their way into the creative industries. I'm Dan Allen and I'm joined by Ellen Thomas. How's it going?
I'm good, thank you. Hello, everybody. Dan remembered my name that time. We had a...
Hey, I don't know what you're talking about because that was removed from that episode. The bit where I forgot has been completely removed.
Dan froze and was like, wait, what's your surname? But we've cleared that up now, so it's all good. Yes,
we have cleared that up. No more mistakes. In fairness, we're new to being a dynamic duo, so
we're finding our feet.
the chemistry was there before the name recalling was there, so I think that's a positive.
That's the most important thing. Yeah.
I accidentally pulled my headphones out there. That was a bit of a faux pas. So I don't know. What did you just say? I missed it. What did you say? Nothing.
I can't remember. I think I just sort of was laughing and agreed with you.
Okay. Anyway,
I think we're all good. Yeah.
This week we are joined by the wonderful Olly Williams. Olly Williams is an art director, and if you're new to film, young in film, then you might be wondering what an art director is. Don't worry, you're going to find out exactly what that is. Olly Williams worked on some of the coolest projects that you have definitely heard of. He worked on Gladiator 2, he worked on the Loki TV series, the Marvel series, and he also worked on Silo as well for Apple TV, and those are just his art directing credits. He's also directed a film, and he's also been a assistant art director on a gajillion other films, including Bohemian Rhapsody, Dungeons and Dragons, Pinocchio. So yeah, I mean, the list is endless. So without any further ado, welcome to the podcast, Olly. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. First question for you. I know we're excited. Before we started recording, we were talking about AI and stuff, so I'm very excited to ask you more stuff about that and how it's sort of pillaging the film industry. But I wondered if you could just give us a broad picture of what art direction is, because a lot of our listeners are younger listeners, and they wouldn't necessarily know about it, because it's sort of, there's a few professions and roles within that sort of sphere, isn't there? There's like production designer and stuff, and
it gets so complicated because within the side of the industry that I'm in, I tend to work on very high budget films and high end TV. But that is not the only part of the industry. There is medium budget films, there's low budget films, there's no budget films, then there's short films, then there's commercials, there's art direction for advertising, and every single instance of those, the art director is doing a different job, essentially. More or less, broad strokes the same. But my job on the big stuff is more like politically based. Quite often I'm dealing with characters and people and managing people. Yeah. But then on a medium budget, I might do a lot more drawing and designing and supporting the designer in a more hands-on way. And then on the lower budget things, it annoys some people when I say this, but if you're on a short film and you're the production designer, it's not often the case that you have enough money to in your budget to create elaborate sets. And so your role as a production designer starts to slip more towards the set decoration, where you're taking props and putting them on existing locations. You're choosing those locations, yes, with a location manager, but then you also slip into the role of the standby art director, which is another role entirely, where you are the representative of the art department on set. So basically what an art director does, and there's a book about it that's called What an Art Director Does, which I really recommend to anybody who's interested. It's a brilliant book.
Did you read that book before or after you started art directing?
During I came. I went,
I love this idea of like you on set.
I discovered the book at the recommendation of an art director, and then I've literally recommended it to absolutely everybody that has ever approached me interested in what the role is. An art director is basically the person who works with the production designer, the set decorator, the props teams, the construction teams to create everything that's in the background, or the things that are being held by the actors. So if you separate the humans, the actors or the animals from the production, and you're just left with images of landscapes or interiors or exteriors of buildings, that sort of thing, and the props themselves, that is what an art director is in charge of, is responsible for. That is their input into the film, which you can imagine on the higher budget things. It's more, you can see more of what we do. But then on the lower budget things, you still got 100% of the film is in shot, is going to be the things that you have inputted. And I always live by the axiom that good design isn't noticed. So if you read a review and they don't touch on the production design, then you've created a believable set. Something that has it isn't like standing out and like distracting you from the story. But then when you're creating props, they become more like characters themselves. So on the higher budget things, for example, last year I was an art director on Gladiator. And we were creating lots and lots and lots of props that were very, very important in the actual storytelling, and the visual direction of the film was told with the thrones, with the awnings, the drapes, the furniture that was all designed, was designed to tell a story about that character, about the emperors, or how the slaves were treated differently, and all of this sort of stuff. And the weaponry was very important, especially the big siege weapons as well, which we had to make practical. It starts to really add into...
Just for when they scale the walls, like this...
Yes, all of that. Yeah. That was all done practically. There's a company that's really, really amazing called BGI, who, if you're interested in the actual making of things rather than the design of them, follow what they do. They're led by Stuart Heath and Neil Corbould, I think. They are like top of the industry for special effects. And they created all of the ships for real, and all of the siege weapons for real. They figured out the mechanisms. Their team built them, and they were actually lobbing flaming canisters at each other with these things. So cool. That's why a big film, you sort of start to see a bit more what the art direction entails. Whereas a smaller film, a small indie film or a romantic comedy or something along those lines, you're trying to make the backgrounds as believable and real world as possible. And often that means that you're talking solely with the director, obviously, but the location manager becomes a very, very important role on those films. When you've got hundreds of locations that you've got to balance, and you're doing minimal input with the art department, just trying to blend things. And on those sorts of jobs, the art director might be less creating an entire set, but more like putting a plug into a window. For example, the window behind me, the cameraman might say that they don't like so much the quality of light coming through, or that there is any light coming through at all. So we'll have to put a plug in there, or we'll have, which means we'll have to fill the space and make it look like it's a wall, or look like it's something architectural. And that's when you're on the lower budget things, you're doing more of those and less of the sets, which is an interesting thing.
how early on in the process do you start development or join, have those conversations and start working with the other people? What point do you come in?
That's a great question, because it's really dependent on the scale of the project. On Gladiator, for example, I started. We should have started about 3 months earlier. However, I started in January, not this year, but last year, and we had more or less 6 months to build everything. And this was building Rome, essentially. We built palaces, we built Venice, we built the Colosseum, we built everything. And that was a very, very short turnaround. The day that we started, our construction team pretty much started at the same time. And so we were having to produce drawings for them. Otherwise, they'd be sitting around doing nothing for months while we were developing things. So it really depends.
Sounds like a much faster system than planning permission in the UK.
Exactly.
It's like, here's a drawing.
We were out in Malta. They were very happy for us to do whatever we wanted. But, the Maltese government is very, very supportive of filmmaking. And especially when it's big blockbuster stuff, and I think they're very friendly with the whole Ridley Scott entourage, because of the first film really put them on the map for filmmaking. But no, so it depends. On other films, I would have hoped to have had a little bit more of a run up, personally, in my role. For the design of things, but we had to hit the ground running because our makers had started at the same time as us. We had to keep them busy. But then the tricky thing with that is that often on a large scale film, the director is very, very inundated with lots of questions, and their head is more or less in the pre-production of the film and less in the prep. Or from our point of view, it can sometimes become quite difficult to get hold of the information that you need with enough lead time. It's a difficult thing to balance. On smaller films, my experience is that the director comes on during our prep time and is like a kid in a candy store when it comes to the design of things, because suddenly you can see things. When you're looking at a script, you're imagining stuff. It's all going on in your head. But the moment you see something translated into a physical object, then it becomes quite an exciting thing. And I think, from my experience, directors get more and more excited when they have an art department involved, when it's a smaller budget thing, because they've had less of that input beforehand in their previous films, potentially. But it really depends on who you're talking about. I mean, I've had a 10-year career, and that is a limited scope as to the directors that I've worked with. I've worked with a couple more than once, and then but there are loads out there, loads of different creative views of how you do the stuff. But,
and is it?
I don't know if that answers your question particularly well, but yeah.
No, it does. Is it your job to balance the creative and then what's actually possible in terms of budget and technology, and then when you're starting, do you let your imagination run wild first and then reel it back in, or is it always in your head at the beginning?
It's really depending on the job and the team that you're working with. But yes, it is pretty much. My job is to balance what is possible with other people's imaginations running wild. And I found that on the bigger projects, that my job is less of saying no to things and more of saying yes to things, because we've got the budget to explore and play around with it. Whereas on the smaller ones, you have to be a bit more firm and say, well, if we had £30,000 to do that prop, then we could, but we've only got £3,000, and that's all been spent in a week on three people making it. You have to limit expectations in that way. Absolutely. But my role on Gladiator was I spent a lot of the first few weeks of it concepting things. So drawing up, doing sketches and sketch art and concepts and things for many of the things that I was involved with. And then we brought in concept artists to come and help because it suddenly grew and grew and grew. And we had remit for it. And then I'll take back the concepts and I'll start developing them in how do we actually make this. We need to make for example, there are these litters which were a little bit of a nightmare, but ended up looking fantastic. But the difficult thing with them was the weight issue. And my boss, I had two bosses basically, the set decorator and the production designer, the two most important people in the production design of a picture. They basically turned to me and said, these have to be really, really lightweight so that we can have people carrying them with somebody in them. A litter is basically a sedan chair. It's two poles which hold a chair or a bed, and you have a bunch of slaves carrying them around. And not real slaves, actor slaves.
Yeah. We got that.
No, the real slaves would be used elsewhere. No, that was me.
Hold up the walls.
Exactly. But we had to make them super lightweight, and it was really, really tricky to do that, and to manage expectations as to how this really big one was going to have to need so many more people to hold it, and so figuring it out became more of an engineering exercise than anything. So I gave that to my draftsman.
It gets a bit sciencey.
Sorry?
It gets a bit sciencey.
It gets a bit sciencey, but it's a lovely thing to balance all of that. The industry is such
an art student
wonderful
phrase.
mix.
Yeah.
The industry balances art with science very, very well, and theatre with computer generated stuff, and it's a really great place to be if you're a creative.
Yeah.
That likes maths as well, because you're going to be handling budgets and things like that. And you can really, if you're semi-creative and more maths orientated, you'll find yourself a good position in the film industry. If you're very creative, you'll still find yourself a good position. It's if you look hard enough, you'll find your niche, and it's
if
good.
you obviously you mentioned working closely with locations department, where does sort of art department or art direction jurisdiction end and production design begin? How do those two departments work together? Is that a fairly tight-knit relationship, or is there very clear lines and sort of what falls under what?
It again depends on the level of film. So over the summer I was on a job called Fuse. Is Aaron Taylor Johnson's latest thing. I think it's going to probably come out before 28 years later, though. I'm not sure what the timeline is on release. But we're working on this job. It's about a bomb that they discover in the Paddington Basin. It's a World War II bomb, and they had to shut down the whole area. And in that, I was working very, very closely with the production designer from the outset, and trying to help her. She's called Amanda MacArthur, brilliant designer. Trying to help her with concepts and the design of the film, and then bridging that into how we're actually going to make it, then the actual making of it. So my role sort of extended across the production design. We had 75 locations on that film, which is a staggering amount of locations. It's huge.
Yeah.
Especially for a film that was probably classed as low budget, I guess, medium to low budget. But then on a job like Gladiator, my role was very much people management. And I at the very beginning, I'd do concepts and help the production design of things. But the production designer had a team of concept artists who were designing each of the looks of. He had 3 or 4 guys working in one place, 3 or 4 guys in another place, and his dodging between these groups of people, and then me doing my sketches of stuff, and then all the other art directors some were based in Malta, some were based in Morocco, some were based in the UK, and my job became much more focused on certain aspects, and taking concepts and making them into real things. But then at some point I was handing things over, whereas this job Fuse over the summer, I was pretty much in the workshop watching things get made to a degree, and you have a much more hands-on approach when you're going back to the special effects company that's making all of the main props and stuff, and you're there and you're choosing finishes with the designer. Your job, you have to move and flex with the production, and it's mostly dictated by scale, and mostly the rest of it is dictated by the person that's in the top seat. So
with something like Gladiator, obviously, I can only imagine the amount of research that must have to go in before even the designing stage.
Yes.
So you said you only had about six months.
6 months
until the start of the
to the start of shooting,
production, which is sounds crazy short. Once you actually start thinking about it, there's a lot to research, work out how you're going to do it and what you want it to look like. So what is it like 2-3 weeks of just research first, or are you just having to do everything all at once?
You balance it. So you do 2 or 3 weeks of research first, where you're not drawing at all, but you're making sketches and notes and stuff. You're pulling references out of books. There's a wonderful Taschen book on Pompeii, which we're using for a lot of the set decoration. The other thing was that Arthur, our designer, who's one of the absolute great production designers of our time, he designed Seven. He designed the original Gladiator.
Wow, yeah.
His portfolio of work is just extraordinary. He designed The Martian. He's done a whole load of Ridley Scott films. He had been on the job for a lot longer, and he had also designed the first film, so had all of the reference archive from that previous production. So
but that was a treasure trove of goodies to look through.
So you basically have a master of that era to reference themselves. And then, so we could kind of hit the ground running with all of that information. And Ridley Scott, he likes to storyboard. He does these things that they call Ridleygrams. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but his Ridleygrams are brilliant. They're just like, it's a very, very simple sketch with a bit of colour here, and just shows exactly what each of the shots are going to be. And if more directors did that, then their shooting ratio would come down a lot. And it would be a lot tighter. The post-production of the film, I think, took 9 months, which is extraordinary for the amount of visual effects that's in it. But then there was an opportunity, I think, when the actors struck last year. We all went home for 3 months, and I think Ridley would have used that time very well to edit what has already been caught. And certainly when we came back to Malta to resume production in November last year, the shooting schedule did change. Things were added, things were taken away, things were done to replace stuff that had already been shot. We were able to do a lot of pickups and that based off all of the editing that they'd done in the interim, which was incredibly useful.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't great for us all on hiatus. But it was. It's interesting.
Can you give me an example? I wondered of what, when you say obviously once you have the shot plans from Ridley Scott, how does that it positively influence like your guys' work, or how does that allow you to be more efficient or cost effective? What is the bonus from your perspective?
From our perspective, well, it's a starting point. That's a visual starting point, a visual cue. We get to see what, because he draws in the backgrounds, not in enormous detail like a concept artist would, which most concept artists would be aiming to get something painterly but almost photographic in their representation of a shot or of a scene. But it's very, very good to know where the camera is pointing, for one, but also where it's not pointing. Although it is a very dangerous thing. That's a dangerous path to go down with the whole Ridley Scott crew, because at some times they had 4 or even 9 cameras running at the same time. I know the average number was about 4 cameras all running at the same time. So they're all pointing in different directions, and it's difficult to balance that on a production design level, because you essentially have to produce 360-degree sets. But we didn't build a 360-degree Colosseum. We built 3/4 of it. I don't know if you've seen. There's plenty of photographs of it online. Of people flying their drones over and stuff. But we built 3/4 of it in the round, and then the height of it was only a third of the real Colosseum, or the set extension that we did in visual effects. But that was because there's limited space on the location that we were building it. But also it was because we had figured out, well, from the first film, they had figured out that they didn't need to produce the entire Colosseum and that was back in 2000. Well, they're making it in 1998, 1999, I guess. But back then, when the visual effects weren't nearly as strong as they are today, they were able to say, we can do a good job of that bit of set extension there. So that is all aided by the Ridley grams, having an idea of what his vision for the production is, and it's very rare to get such comprehensive visual cues from the director themselves. Usually they have a storyboard artist come in and do it, but most of the storyboards are done by his own hand, so you know that it's not going to change too much on the day, but maybe a bit. I'd be interested to hear what Arthur Max, and Gileaz's Ellie Griff, the set decorators on the job, would say about that, because they had a very, very much more hands-on interaction with Ridley himself on that. But we would fed these things, and we had them up on the walls, and they were really useful.
In terms of research and other prep, because you mentioned the books that you were looking at for Gladiator 2, what other forms of research or resources do you use to develop historical accuracy or faithfulness to the world?
So there are lots of etchings done by an artist, I can't remember his name, Piranesi, I think, but they were they're not contemporary to the time, but they're a lot more contemporary to the time than we are today, and he was absolutely obsessed with Roman architecture, and
Yeah.
sort of trying to create landscapes and worlds within the Roman legend or myth or whatever you want to call it, that were believable. And so we're using that sort of reference, Piranesi etchings, to guide us. A lot of books, basically, because of the age of the age that we're trying to represent. But then you go online and you create what are they called? Pinterest boards and things like that of anything
Love
that
a
you
Pinterest
found
board.
online. Pinterest board's brilliant.
Who knew they were using Pinterest boards for Gladiator 2?
Yes, I know. But the great thing about Pinterest is you can lock it, so you can keep things private, which is film. There are so many non-disclosures that you have to sign and things in the run-up to a film release. I'm all right to talk about it now because the film's being released and it's out there, and there are lots of interviews with other people. But and nothing we're talking about is unusual really for a film. The only thing that was unusual really on Gladiator was, I guess, the budget was one thing, and the pool of talent that they were able to draw from, because they had a lot of the original heads of department come back to do the film, and it's very rare to get those people back in the same room again. Not because of any animosity or anything, but because it's they've each worked on a very successful film, and they're all very expensive to hire, and they come with very expensive teams, and it's and the industry has a funny way of falling out of sync with people and falling back into sync with people just based on your time schedule, what film you're finishing and what film you're about to start. It's not necessarily mutually exclusive across all of the departments, because, for example, camera will start maybe a couple of weeks before shoot, whereas the art department will have started several months before. To answer your question from before, the average sort of prep time that we have is probably about four months on a film. So so an art department would start around there. And then that can extend depending on the budget and the scope of the film. So, falling in and out of sync is a big thing.
Just creatively, I wondered, how do you find the balance between something that's historically accurate, something that maybe serves the story or the scene, and something that's just really cool?
Well, Ridley would say, let's go for the cool thing.
I was thinking the baboons jumped to mind now that you said that.
It's my interaction with Ridley was quite funny. We were obviously it's in the trailer, it's in the film. They flood the Colosseum, so we're talking architecturally about.
I thought that was so cool.
I thought it lost me a little bit with the sharks, but the flooding of the Colosseum, they actually do it. So,
I was like, bring on the sharks. Anything to do with the animals and stuff. It was cool.
So we had to raise the eye line of the Emperor's box, the royal box, so that the actors, the emperors, had a better eye line visually over the boats, which are obviously raised up a metre and a half with the waterline. So and everyone was very keen as well to use some footage of crowd sequences from the original film, if they could, just to have that as an option, where they just got plate shots of crowd just doing this in the stadiums. And I had to put my hand up and say, are we worried at all that the Emperor's box is now raising its eye line? It's going to be changed architecturally to suit. we worried about continuity because there will be continuity differences between the set that we're building and the set that was built originally. And you might be able to notice that in the crowd sequences. And I just got a one-liner back: continuity is for wimps. And it's absolutely brilliant. I wanted it on a T-shirt, but at that moment, you just that's
was that from Ridley himself, or was that from?
I guess if a Colosseum is being flooded, you're not going to think about what it was looking like a few minutes before.
Yeah. That's
this
exactly
is the forever battle with script supervisors as well.
Script supervisors. So we just took that as carte blanche. We could have a little bit of creative expression with what we're doing on this sequel, which a lot of stuff we were trying to match harmoniously, but then I mean, when the director is open to it, it gives you a little bit more flexibility, and that's good. But then again, it's director to director. There are some directors that are absolute sticklers for the tiniest little detail being absolutely perfect, and then there are others that are more broad strokes. We want to have a good time. We want to have a romp. We want to get through it.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how does the prep change from something like Gladiator 2 to something like I know you worked on Loki?
Yes.
I would include Silo in the list of sci-fi, but Silo's very grounded, whereas Loki's a lot more fantastical in its science fiction.
Yeah.
How is that process different?
So the difference there was the creative approach of the production design of themselves. So on Loki, we had more or less the same team of set decoration went from Loki on to Gladiator, which might sound interesting because they're such different films. However, the designer was a very different designer. It's a guy called Kazra Farahani, who's an absolute genius when it comes to design. He invented the world of Loki, that whole TVA and everything. If you ask him what room this new set is going to be on, he'll get out his map of the TVA and show you exactly how you get there from all of these other places that we've been. And he had a huge steer on the production, so much so that they actually got him to direct one or two episodes in the second series, which is the one that I worked on.
Wow.
I came onto that project quite late, so I sort of hired in an emergency because they needed an extra pair of hands, so I sort of missed out on the 4 months of prep beforehand, and I started a week before shoot. And my job was essentially to kind of bully the process into we've got to get the stuff made now. I came on and did that for the rest of the job. They seemed happy with what we were doing, but I missed out on the actual the seed process where in series 1 they were actually playing around with ideas, and now series 2 there were fewer instances where we could be original from the first series. Detract ourselves from it. There were a couple of sets like was it Chicago 1894, the White City, where they had the trade, not the trade fair, the fair, the big, huge. They built an entire city. It put Chicago on the map. It basically gave it its name, the Windy City, as well. All from this moment in time, this thing that was up for a year. And that we could be a little bit more creative and original, but we were again looking at a lot of references. I designed a lamppost for it, which we 3D printed as well, the entire lamppost.
Has that become a big thing, 3D printing? Is a lot of the stuff that you guys are...
Well, because it's got so much faster.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You can create something quite detailed in a computer that before with filament printers wouldn't translate, because they're not so accurate. But now with resin printers, you can have. So I did a job called the Continental. Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't seen the Continental.
haven't seen it.
Continental was interesting because I went out to Hungary for that, and we had a funny thing where there was a set that was pretty much entirely the only way that we could make it was by 3D printing, and I said to Yuri, the guy that was going to contract all the work, I said, "Can you make this? All of these is this rib cage structure, which the designer wanted." And Daniel, the set decorator, was very, very keen that it had this sort of like ribcage structure, which was pneumatic delivery tubes. So, in IKEA, you can put a capsule into a tube and it gets sucked off to the other side of the building and delivers a message.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
So we had to design this as a communication system throughout the hotel. It's John Wick's hotel.
Yeah.
So I came up with the system and approached Yuri. Yuri said, "No, can't make it in time." I was like, "What if we 3D print the whole thing?" And he said, "Well, could, but you'd need probably 20 3D printers." So next day, 20 3D printers arrive at his workshop, and he gets it done. As we hand over the set 2 days early.
Wow.
And, that was a great success. That one instance on that job, but that was a tricky job.
Yeah.
I went from that on to Loki, where they were doing their own pneumatic delivery system. I don't know if you remember that they have this fantastic. It's like a tree growing out from the center of the room where. What's his name? The actor who was a child actor who was in
Indiana Jones.
He's in it, and this is his workshop. He's Aurora Borealis or something, OB or something like that. I think his name is in the show, but he has his own pneumatic delivery system where these things get sucked away, and it's so strange going from one job that had one to another job that had one. They're just as
You should
big.
have packed it in a bag and brought it with you.
Sorry?
Should have packed it in a bag and brought it with you.
There is a thing with designers get very, very particular about not reusing designs.
Interesting.
Which is very
Gotcha.
interesting. Although Kazra, his approach, which I had to basically, is the first time that I'd done it so, like, rigidly. He really, really likes reference.
Yeah.
And in Loki, it's such a you were saying yourself, it's such a fantastical, like, invented reality. However, every single prop, everything in it has been backed up by at least 3 references from our world.
Yeah.
Which is
interesting.
From a design point of view, it's really, really fascinating because it's so out there, but everything has been is an interpretation of something that we've already got.
I watched a video recently of it was I think it was a set builder or production designer of Wicked, and he was breaking down the shiz, the building that they obviously constructed. Yeah. And he was sort of just circling the whole building bit by bit and being like, "That this is from this is where we got the idea for this." And eventually by the end, every little section of the entire building is circled and identified with a reference, and I think that's really interesting for our sort of young listeners, is that you think that creativity is this whole going into some mystical void in the brain and pulling something out of nothing, but actually
it really is.
No, it's about looking at things, right, and being like, okay, well, let's get inspired by this, and it's about merging things together. Like, how do you see it in that referential way?
It is absolutely, it's 100% observation. If you but when I was at school, I really wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be an art director from a very early age.
Oh, wow.
But I wanted to practice my art and try and be be artistic in as many ways as I could, and so I sketched, I drew, I sculpted, I painted, I did everything I could, and I always struggled with the idea of how to be creative. And it's later on that I realized, and I wish I could say this to myself back then, that it's all the answers are all around you.
Yeah,
they're all in the room with you. You can be the most creative person, but if you're not observing things, you're probably going to really struggle.
Yeah,
and I certainly struggled when I was younger to try and invent things. But the times that I realised that I was actually observing stuff was when I was very, very little. I was maybe 5 or 6. I was absolutely obsessed with making things out of toilet rolls and tissue boxes and stuff. And I always lent on the things that I was interested in, which were like physical objects or the pod races from Phantom Menace, which came out around that
those.
time.
I saw that in the cinema recently this year.
So I'd made little.
They did a re-release, yeah.
Did you? It's actually not a bad film, apart from the politics and trade envoys and what the hell are they doing telling that to kids? So random. So you mentioned Silo. Silo was the same designer that designed the Phantom Menace.
Interesting. Oh wow, cool.
Gavin Bouquet.
Yeah. I can almost see it a little bit now that you've said that. In those sort of the circular thing, even the what was it, the political room, I can almost now see the parallel. When you look up and there's just all those circular bits everywhere. It reminds me of that. Whatever that democracy room is.
Yes,
the Senate room.
He loves the sphere. He loves the circle.
Yeah.
Gavin really. But he knows what he's doing. He's one of the most long in the tooth designers out there, and his experience really shows. But then you see the style through everything.
Yeah,
and it really expressed itself in Silo. Silo is a fantastic design project, and I had a huge amount to do with it, with developing that for him, for taking things on. My magnum opus on that job, I think, was probably designing the sheriff's badge.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Which again, we used loads of references. We even went online to Turbo Squid and downloaded lots of sheriff's badges that people had made, and then I developed it. I made 30 different versions.
Yeah.
In the space of a week or something.
Wow.
I drew it 30 times. And one of the times he asked to make a change of 0.5 millimeter on one of the wall thicknesses of a bit of detailing.
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh, Gavin, that's 0.5 millimeter. This thing is this size. It's going to be maybe 2.5 inches in diameter." And he was like, "Okay, give me your 3D model and turn on my 50-inch TV over there."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay." And he pulled the model and he put it up on the screen, and then he zoomed in until it filled the screen. And he said, "When we see the sheriff's badge, it's going to be this size on that screen. And you see that 0.5 millimeter that you're talking about? That's more like 10 mil.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
You've got to think of it how the viewer's going to see it." And I went away from it. I disgruntledly changed it, and he signed it off. Just did all that. Guess what happens? The series, for the first time, the very first shot, tight shot on the sheriff's badge on a table, tracking out, and then a hand going to grab it, and so the sheriff's badge ended up being that big on the screen and the first shot.
Wow.
Of the whole film.
Yeah. That must have felt like the process and the project, like almost talking to you, being like, "See, it was important."
Yeah, that was a bit of like a
I
okay.
reckon
Olly,
he paid a lot of money to make sure that was the first shot.
I was right.
Definitely a lot of that going on.
Just before we sort of draw to a close, I know
beforehand we talked a little bit about AI.
Yes.
And I wondered sort of specifically with art direction. I certainly know of smaller productions that they've started using it almost to design, posters in the background. So on the one hand, it feels like a democratizer for sort of smaller budget films, but on the other hand, it threatens the artistry that sort of we love and we admire. That means films are as rich as they are, certainly on the bigger budget. How do you sort of see that this new sort of threat?
AI is a complicated subject, and it's not really something that we can discuss at length, but tagging it onto the end of this. But I think we could talk about it across several podcasts. However, I would say that using it as posters in the background, all that sort of stuff, is a dangerous thing to do because we don't know who owns the copyright on it. That's one thing. So you might find yourself later on down the line when they actually figure out the legalities of who owns what, that somebody, not yourself, might own that. And whilst it has been created for a production, that entity that has created it isn't contracted. It isn't bound by any agreement. And if you go on to ChatGPT and you ask it to sign an agreement, it'll go, sure, yeah, I can do that, but it doesn't mean anything. So AI is a really, really tricky thing. How do we use it? So I know a lot of production designers that are interested in using it for a concept sort of stage of the development. But then you start saying that you're using Midjourney, for example, to create your visuals. And then the director starts going, oh, I can use Midjourney as well because I can write a prompt in, and then they start designing it themselves. So it's throwing a lot of really difficult questions into the industry. And we're talking about AI and the camera setup and using this focus pulling equipment to just basically make me a one-man package where I don't need a whole team to pull focus, to do audio and stuff. I can do that. I've got a camera that can do everything to a high degree. It's really useful for certain aspects of filmmaking. Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But a lot of people are worried that it's going to take their jobs. And my argument against that is, and this probably will affect your listeners more than it will affect me at my stage of my career, because by the time it really kicks in, AI, I'll probably be halfway through tail ending my career. Not so worried about people, computers replacing my ability to draw. It might actually be quite useful, but it will affect your listeners. And I would say that AI isn't going to take anybody's job or your future job prospects. The person that uses AI will. So it's the same thing that happened with AutoCAD. When I was at school, AutoCAD became a thing, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I like drawing by hand. And now, ironically, I've gained a reputation in the industry as being really good at a program called Rhino. Which is a very, very good one to learn if you want to learn a piece of software. Learn Rhino, especially if you're interested in the film industry. It's great because you can do 3D stuff and 2D stuff, but once they throw some AI into that equation, then it's going to start becoming quite an interesting package. And if you can rise to the top in your use of AI, then you won't be wanting for work because, be wary of it too, because What's the way of looking at it?
So your advice is to embrace it and master it, and you have it as like an extra asset and skill.
It's an incredibly clever thing, but it desperately needs human input. And if you can use it, and somebody else is somebody's asking you to do something, and you're using AI, don't feel ashamed of that, because it's been invented. What are we going to do? Uninvent it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
not going to happen.
It's here. The technology has been invented. The car was invented, and it put a lot of horses out of work. But it didn't mean that we could stop moving around. In fact, we move around a lot more efficiently and a lot better for it. Maybe less efficiently for global pollution and stuff like that. But then all of these inventions, they've come at the cost of one thing, but they've given us a leg up into a new world. And I think AI is going to do that. It's going to open up a lot of doors for the world. It's an incredibly hard topic to summarize in a nutshell, though.
Yeah, I think you're giving us a good sense, and I think the nice thing is I think there's some inspiring thoughts in there, in the sense that you don't have to be left behind because of it. You can embrace it, and you almost need to, because as you're saying, I mean, you can't park up a horse at a train station and be like, but this is the old-fashioned way. Do you want to get on my horse? It's like people are obviously going to get the train, so you might as well get on the train.
And also, you've highlighted.
Go on.
Also, I was going to say you've highlighted that it's not AI all on its own. The same way it's not like a person all on its own. It's those two things together, which is where the benefit can come from.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing to bear in mind is that the people that use AutoCAD or CAD software the best, the ones that use it and produce the best drawings, are the ones that learned how to hand draw first. And it's going to be the same with AI. If you've learned how to hand draw and then you go into a CAD software and then you learn AI, you're going to be much better than the person that learnt AI and that's all they know, because they don't know the rules, essentially, that make something good.
It's like with driving a car. If you learn manual instead of just automatic, you'll be a better driver.
It definitely makes you more useful in the situation when you're stuck out in Mozambique or something, and all they got to hire is a manual. And you go, I just got an automatic license.
I actually only learned automatic. Yeah, exactly.
Ollie, we normally wrap up.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it a footrest?
Oh, God, it doesn't.
Why is it not doing anything? We normally wrap up by asking what you're up to in your teenage years and the advice you would give to that teenage self. You inadvertently actually asked yourself that question and answered it to both bits of that when you were talking about idea creation and where ideas come from. But I wondered if you had any additional closing thoughts of advice that you would give to that teenage version of you.
Okay, so this is going to be inflammatory, I think, for a lot of teachers.
Okay.
But is that all right?
Don't go to school.
School is absolutely fantastic. It is such an important thing to do, because you're rubbing shoulders with people your age. You don't want to end up staying at home with just like older people all the time. You want to sort of grow with people. That's one thing. But exams, I think exams are the least efficient and definitely the worst invention for judging somebody's usefulness, their intellect. their ability to do something. I always got myself really, really tied up with stress. I mean, I had stomach cramps whilst I was doing my common entrance, which I had to go to doctors and stuff to try and figure out what was going on. It was just stress because the exams were putting me under so much stress. And I didn't do well in exams, but I went out into the real world and I got a job. And if you're somebody that struggles with stress with exams, if you're somebody that struggles with exams themselves, or think that people are going to ask you when I'm 32, at age 32, what did you get in your GCSEs or what did you get in your A-levels? They're never going to ask you. It's a really useful thing to be able to get into university, yes, but don't let it define you as a person. That's the most important piece of advice: is don't let these rigid structures that we built, and they're basically a political game, define who you are creatively, intellectually, or even personally. Because the world is a big place, but it's a wonderful place because you can fit into certain things there. But exams. And do your exams, do as best as you can, but don't think that it defines who you are.
Yeah,
that would be my advice to myself.
Any of those people, did want to go into art direction, people listening to this, where should they look? Where could they get on the ladder?
I studied architecture in order to do it because I figured that architecture is the best avenue into art direction, because you're basically doing the architecture of films. And if you learn how to draw properly, again going back to my point about learning to do things by hand and then AutoCAD and then whatever comes next, learning to do it in the core where the industry came from is probably the most useful thing. Don't necessarily have to go to film school. And film school is a funny place because usually on day one you kind of separate yourselves into who's going to be the director, who's going to be the producer, who's going to be the art director, whatever. You don't necessarily go to a course to do, unless you're going to Beaconsfield or whatever, NFTS. You don't do a specific course for a specific role. You kind of split yourself up into your teams. The best teacher in the industry, the best way to learn your craft is by doing, and join the industry as soon as you feel ready. And just become a runner, go be as useful a person as possible. I still try to be the most useful person I can. It doesn't matter that my role is art director now. I still try to be useful, and that's just be willing and able, and just a good presence, good vibe on set, and you'll go far. And it's not just about art direction. You might start wanting to be an art director, but end up wanting to do something else. You might see what the camera guys are doing and want to be cameraman, woman, or whatever. It's really.
Well, I saw you directed a film as well.
Yes,
was it a feature as well? So
yes, a feature.
We'll have to check that out.
Go. It's on Amazon. It's called Adira's Dream, and you can rent it for £2.
Yes, perfect.
So that's the other way of learning, is by do your own projects as well. Don't be afraid. Just write something, get a group of friends together. 500 quid. You can achieve a lot with that sort of money. Just go and do.
Amazing. Olly, thank you so much for your time. This has been really wonderful and super enlightening. And we have learnt loads, thank you. I love Gladiator and Loki. And Silo. This was a nerd out for me.
Such personally. An insider scoop. Yeah, a couple of times I was sitting there and I was like, wait, this guy actually worked on Gladiator. Like, I knew before going in, but I was like, oh, that's actually really cool.
Really cool. Especially, to me, Gladiator is like
the epitome of filmmaking, in the sense so many departments working together to create something that's escapist and immersive.
And it's also based on like an actual historical time period, so just like the merging of like fantastical and historical, super nerdy and fantastic.
No, 100%. It really is. All the Colosseum stuff was cool. I know he mentioned the sharks. I love the sharks in there. But I think that's my obsession with like Indiana Jones back in the day, where it's like having to deal with the snakes and the crocodiles, and just any kind of animals in sort of a threatening sense. To me, I love that in cinema.
It's quite a classic fear, isn't it? Like Jaws and stuff.
Yeah. Or giant killer deer as well.
You're the expert in that.
I'm the king of giant killer deer. We have a question though this week, which is I don't think this is going to take long to answer. Incredibly relevant. This is from Billy, who's in Newport. Billy says, I really love drawing and designing things, but I want to work in film. Is there a particular role that might suit my skills and passion? And I feel like the episode has just answered that, Billy.
Yeah. And I think what Olly went into was like, there's art direction, but there's also so many parts of that web of the production design. You've got SFX team, like visual effects, you've got the set design, you've got we've even got costume and things like that, all things that require drawing. And like Olly said, just getting in there and just finding your niche within it and being open to all those different subsections.
100%. Like just hearing the scale of, the kinds of people that are working for all these different departments that are then working together. It sounds like there's a lot of crossover as well. There's a lot of collaboration between the teams. So like the production design team, the locations team, the art department team, like all of those seem to potentially be employing people that design, that draw. And I guess we'd re-emphasize Olly's point of also learn how to use AI stuff just so you don't fall behind. Be really good at the manual stuff. Because I worry about, like, from my side of things, in terms of stories and idea creation, I worry about, you might end up with a generation of people that are really good at saying, hello, ChatGPT, create me a film, some ideas for film of what this could be or who these characters could be. And it's like, okay, yeah, cool. That's really useful. That's a really good tool. Yeah. But you also need to develop the muscle to draw references and build stuff like that yourself,
Exactly. Use it as a tool, not as a replacement.
Exactly.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed that voice you just did for the AI.
Oh my God, what voice did I do?
It was sort of like a little bit like this. But it really painted the picture, so thank you.
I didn't even realise I was doing a voice. I just sort of was so in the zone. I was just like, I must create this setting and this theme for the listeners.
Yes, always thinking about story. Love that.
Absolutely. But yeah, so guys, thank you so much for joining us. Do send us your questions. And we'll see you on another one, won't we, Ellen?
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed it.